It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
Happy matinee to you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Steve, Andy.
Good morning.
You went to see Susperia last night.
Yes, we did.
Oh, yes, we did.
Can we have a report?
It was interesting.
This is your report. This is your long silence and interesting.
Well,
really?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect because I'm not a big fan of the horror genre. I know that this is sort of like an influential film, and then there's the whole it's the Italian giallo horror thing, which I don't know much about that genre or what it's supposed to look like or feel like. And so it was a beautiful 4K, print restoration or whatever they're calling that. So it looked good. The colors, some really interesting things with colors. It's not my type of film. I'm glad I saw it.
Well, it was a really interesting, it was an interesting experience. And it does pique my curiosity in the world of kind of the Italian giallo horror. I'm really curious to see more of them just to kind of get a sense, because it definitely was like a visual treat. It was, the story was kind of weak, but it was interesting, and it certainly was just something that I was never bored with. I had a really fun time just kind of seeing what they did with it and how they were really playing with kind of the horror genre and what they were doing, because it does kind of get into the characters' heads, and it just makes it this kind of psychological journey into kind of very colorful gore. And so it wasn't my favorite movie, but it certainly was something that I still think I enjoyed, and made me want to watch more. So there you go.
All right. Well, I guess that's a win. That's
it's
the most middling report I think I've heard from you two. I hadn't even heard of this movie until Abe Ben Ruby was on the Speakeasy and said we have to watch it.
I see a lot of interesting visuals that I think people have lifted or been influenced by, because it's from, Andy and I were discussing how old this film is. It's 1977. We thought it was much older because Udo Kier is in it and looks like he's 19 or something like that. So we thought this was 60s, but it is that 70s. You've got the 70s blood that, is really sort of hokey. And there's not much story to it. And I regretfully got tricked into a jump scare that I was just ashamed of. It's really? But
That was
fantastic. I think it's one that I'm still stewing over in my head, because there are a lot of interesting visuals, and it's something that I think maybe to revisit later on, to just look at what it does visually and how that works, because there isn't much story.
Is that so? I got to go back to your jump scare comment. Are you feeling a little bit resentful that you got taken?
Well, I knew something was coming, and it wasn't what I expected. So then it was just this, hokey bat thing that I was like, oh, really? You're going to startle me? Because it's getting towards the end where things build up. And I think the tagline for this movie was the only thing more scary than the last 10 minutes of this movie or the first 90 minutes of the movie or something like that. And so it did ramp things up, and I thought, oh, this is going to, I thought we were going to get really bizarre, creepy scare stuff, and just, bat on a string flying through a window made me jump.
Oh, I can see why you feel bad about the poor Steve.
Yeah.
He was the bat. The only thing more scary than the last 10 minutes of this movie are the first 90. So the last 10 are okay if you made it through the first 90.
I think
it's all downhill from there.
Yeah.
It's all, I thought it was all pretty much on the same level, but maybe in the 70s, if it was something that you were seeing for the first time, I could see that maybe, but I don't know. It really makes me interested in this upcoming remake that's supposed to be coming out. I thought they were both, or it was supposed to be released in October, but I haven't heard anything else about it. But I am really curious about, because watching this with the colors and the filmmaking style and stuff, it's I wonder how they're going to do the remake, because clearly this is in its own giallo universe. The story is pretty weak, but the style is pretty high. Are they going to go with that, or are they going to kind of keep it a little more, or are they going to kind of update the story? So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this remake.
Would you call it the Giallo Extended Cinematic Universe?
does that even mean?
I forgot. What else did we want to talk about?
I don't know. I think we were going to talk about Flatliners and other things this weekend, and Flatliners and the wonderful 0% rating it got on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh,
yes.
dear.
Yeah.
But then you have to.
That's not good.
Well, then you have to, say, I'm not going to go with the little tomato thing, but because that can be deceiving. So let me look at the other ratings, and it's like 3.5 out of 10, which still is not good.
Oh. When it gets down there, I can't, even if it's genuinely a bad movie, I can't help but feel bad about it for them on their behalf.
Well, I mean, nobody goes into making a movie, hey, let's make something that gets a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, obviously they're trying to make something that they think is worthwhile. And then just something like this happens, and obviously it does hurt. I mean, I do feel bad for the filmmakers, but again, this is the one I saw the trailer, and I'm like, gosh, is that going to be something worth watching? Like, why did they feel this was a property that needed to be revisited?
Yeah.
I think it's the combination of it's a reboot, but it's also sort of a sequel thing. And I don't know if that's contributing to the problem of they weren't sure how to approach this and decided, well, let's do a sequel and reboot it. We'll have the best of both worlds, because that always works out wonderfully.
It's a squee-boot.
Yes. Well,
you heard it here first.
A squee-boot.
Something about the 0% though piques my curiosity more than it would if it was just like a 37, because I'm like, 0, that has to be really bad. And it makes me wonder if, give it, 20 years, is this going to be like some cult film that people will be going, oh, that was such a great movie. Nobody understood it at the time.
Well, reading it's like,
no, Andy.
No,
Andy, no one will say that.
And the little quotes from the critics they pulled, it's like, who can one-up each other on the snark? Because we've got Glenn Kenny from the New York Times. This Flatliners is, in fact, a new definition of meh. And then Mike D'Angelo from AV Club says, Flatliners 2017 is the same dumb movie as Flatliners 1990, minus most of the surface charisma.
Oh, dear.
Ouch.
Yes.
That's terrible.
They're just, yeah. There's nothing good. Somebody get a defibrillator in here. Stat. Oh, yeah.
Did you guys like the original Flatliners when it came out?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because of who I was at the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, and that's what makes me wonder. I'm like, I feel like these critics might not be the audience for this movie. It might be, that teen crowd that wants to go see things like this. Because if I was a teenager, I probably would be in the seat watching this. I mean, I loved My Stepmother as an Alien when that came out, and I can't, I have never.
We all know how that turned out.
It's not something that I want to ever revisit, but I'm betting that it was nowhere as good as I thought it was at the time. So. I'm sure teenagers will go watch this and probably enjoy it, but nobody else wants to see it.
Well, rough report. Yeah. Rough report from Flatliners. What else is on your list? Has anybody watched? Can I just ask? Has anybody watched any now? Since we're still in the heat of our Trek series, Discovery.
I need to start checking it out. I haven't yet.
You haven't checked it out.
I watched.
Steve, did you watch something?
I watched the first episode, and I think, as I may have mentioned on Slack, you guys have been, critical of the next gen movie, saying these are just like big TV episodes. Well, yeah, I can see that. But what's interesting with Discovery is it looks like they took a feature movie and crammed it onto the TV. And I think the part, Andy and I talked about this in the car a little bit last night after the movie we went, so after watching Susperia, and I think the issue was back then the whole idea with like Trek was everything you may have had like a 2-episode story or something, but it was the stories were just these small individual standalone pieces. Now TV has gotten to the place where you can have like a series long arc of a story, so you can tell a really big story, and audiences will show up for that. You don't need isolated standalone episodes. And that pilot episode of Discovery, I'm like, wow, they're taking on a huge story here that I'm assuming it's going to take up at least the first half of the first season. And so it feels like a big story. But then secondly, my wife's watching with me. She's like, wait. This is supposed to take place like before original Trek. She's like, how come like the bridge on, Next Gen and original Trek felt like these small little things? We're here like, before that, and the bridge of the ship is like this ginormous stage where they were each standing like 30 feet away from each other. It's almost like the captain has to shout commands across this huge room that is brightly lit with like all windows. And you look at the original bridges, it's like it's like somebody's living room where they're all crammed in there. And this was just like, this is the biggest bridge on a ship ever. How do they have room for this when, they're less technologically advanced in where they should be?
Yeah. Well, and that way, it's interesting because you look at that and then you look at the phaser. Yeah. And she draws a phaser and it's exactly like the phaser from the original series.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it is the exact model. So there's, I felt like I could see some of the kind of Bryan Singer-ish stuff.
Yeah.
He's not really a part of it anymore, but certainly in the first two episodes, which kind of run as a pair. And who knows? Episode 3, I think, just dropped yesterday. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm very curious to see if what happened in the first two episodes, just how committed they are to running with that, making it a season-long story arc. I think they are. My hunch is that we're going to see something that's imminently bingeable. And so far, I got to say, pretty good. But I do have to say, I have a hard time feeling or making a judgment as to which feels more like Trek, the Orville or Discovery, which I never imagined I would say. But one of these series actually has buried in it the heart of Gene Roddenberry, the still beating heart of Gene Roddenberry. And,
much to his chagrin.
Yes, and my sense is it's not going to be Discovery, which is fascinating.
Well, I agree.
So,
the Orville, the challenge with the Orville is I'm struggling with the tone they're trying to set, because everything I'm like, I thought this was like half hour, wacky sitcom. No, this is like hour long, Star Trek drama with some, sort of
with some pea gags.
Yes, and there's little quips and one-liners and jokes in there, but overall, when you back out of it, you look at the story, you're like, oh yeah, that's like some discarded Trek episode that never got fully fleshed out or something. Interesting stories, interesting character. I'm like, I didn't think I was going to have to be so focused and serious about these characters. I thought this was going to be like complete parody, and it has that, but it's like this loving homage to like Trek that I was not expecting.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I still don't think it's going to make it to season 2, but
no.
Oh, really? Is it?
I think season 1 will be worth it. Well, it's a lot of money. I mean, this is a very expensively produced show, and I don't imagine that they're getting the kind of attention. We'll see, but I don't imagine they're getting the kind of attention that merits the kind of spend per episode. I just can't imagine it.
I don't think either of these will make it to a season 2. So
well, I think CBS is killing Discovery by making it subscription only. I think that's awful. It's just a horrible thing to do.
Well, I'm wondering if they're going to, hit a realization if the numbers don't come in, and they're just going to end up putting it out there in other ways.
Here's hoping.
It seems like that's the only way to end up starting to draw an audience in.
Yeah, if you want to build a following, it's got to be where people are actually watching. And I don't know. I mean, do you? It's a tough sell to subscribe to CBS.
Yes.
It's not a thing that's long lasting, I think. So it'll be interesting. Right. All right. What else is on your list?
We've got the box office.
Yeah.
It just became, I think, just this past week, the highest grossing horror film ever, finally breaking the 34-year streak that The Exorcist had.
34 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. And, it's exciting to see something that's really just tapped into the zeitgeist so much. And I think it always seemed like the property that could potentially have some great legs for Stephen King films, because I think Pennywise was such a creepy character, and it was just such a successfully designed character that I think the trick was figuring out how to do it. And I feel like finding the way to split it between the two time periods probably was the strongest way to do it. It does make me wonder how successful the adult story will be at chapter 2, because it's one of those ones where it's like, I always liked the kids' story so much better in the book than the adults. So will they do something with the second story to kind of build it so it's a little stronger of a story. I don't know, but we'll find out September 2019.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh.
Yeah.
The box office is waiting for you, Pete.
Apparently it is, although it does not need my help.
It doesn't need it, no. But it's, it and then, of course, Kingsman, the two movies that are at the top of the box office, are pretty much expected to still be at the top of the box office after this week. I mean, American Made and Flatliners are opening, but as we just said with Flatliners, I don't know if it's even going to make the top 5. American Made, I went out and saw it the Thursday night preview, and I had a great time with it. I thought Tom Cruise and Doug Liman did a great job with it. But it might hit number 3 for the weekend, but I don't think it has a chance of cracking the top 2.
You don't think it's going to beat that bucket of crap Kingsman 2?
Fisticuffs, here we go.
No, because I've got manners, and manners make man.
Man,
There you go.
I'm
There
a
you
troll. Let's talk about trailers.
Do I get to call the red band rule still?
Yes, you do.
Wait, there's another rule? There's
a red band rule.
What is
red
that?
band trailers always go first.
Oh.
That's right.
And in case we have 2 red band rules, I don't remember. Is it alphabetical?
I don't think we've ever had that, but
Okay.
I guess
We'll have to cross
I guess
that
we'll
bridge.
have to. If somebody had picked the red band for Shape of Water, we could have this discussion. But
Okay.
no one did. But yeah, so my trailer is the the trailer for the wonderful Better Watch Out, which starts out what looks like, just kind of, there's a little bit of a teen romance sort of thing going on. You've got that horror vibe as this ex-boyfriend starts going after the babysitter, and it's got a pretty standard looking vibe with it. But then as soon as the kid, the young teen who is being babysat and who's totally got a crush on the babysitter, as soon as he takes out his bat and smacks it into the head of the killer ex-boyfriend and kills him, it pretty much goes bonkers from there in this trailer. And it, definitely, it marks it as a comedy horror thriller. And the trailer certainly lives up to that because it's over the top. You've got all sorts of crazy stuff happening with intruders trying to break in. And now it's like this home invasion and these group of people are trying to protect the house, but it's bonkers. It's insane. And this young kid who is the one being babysat, is just brilliant. And I couldn't get enough of watching every little part of this trailer. I had so much fun with it. What did you guys think of it?
Well, it surprised me. It was one I thought, well, I'm surely not going to see this. And then the baseball bat thing, and now I'm kind of intrigued. And Virginia Madsen is in it, and
Patrick Warburton.
Warburton. So I'm actually more excited about that than I expected to be.
It wasn't the baseball bat for me. It was the "you're gonna home alone him" line that caught me, because if you haven't seen it, somebody did sort of a breakdown of like the actual physical traumatic injury that the bandits would have suffered from all of the little traps in Home Alone. So if you go out there, you can find what happens if you're tied to a chair and somebody chucks that paint can. And it's pretty gruesome. And so I thought they're running with that and they're going to take it. And the tonal shift is, I'm really intrigued by this, because this is a horror film I can get behind because it's just so ridiculous and fun.
And is it me, or is that Levi Miller? Is that the main kid?
Yeah, he's the main kid.
He looks so much different than he did in Pan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
right?
I never imagined Pan to, do this kind of
to Home Alone
stuff.
somebody.
It's grim.
Well, it did make me wonder. I mean, these are the sorts of questions you shouldn't ask in a movie like this, but it's like, he's probably old enough to not need a babysitter. Why is he still getting babysat? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's fine. It was a really fun trailer. I have to just read this though. So it's directed by Chris Peckover and written by Chris along with Zach Kahn. And just looking at Zach Kahn's bio on IMDb, this is what somebody wrote, which just cracked me up. Zach Kahn was first seen in his kindergarten production of Les Miserables. Based in Los Angeles, Khan is a comedian, actor, writer, director, and author. His favorite genres to work with are comedy, thriller, horror, drama, fiction, nonfiction, action, crime, indie, mainstream, romantic comedy, and porn. He can currently be seen in Panic Room on Ice.
That is Renaissance Hollywood, Jack.
That just, but I mean, he was a writer on Mad TV, and so it has that feel. And I had a great time watching this trailer, and it looks like this movie is actually opening up. It played at Fantastic Fest, but it's going to be hitting theaters here next Friday. So we're going to be able to see this very soon. And then I think, U.S., New Zealand, Thailand, UK, and Ireland. It'll be kind of hitting all those places between November and December. Nowhere else outside of that, but hopefully people will be able to find it regardless.
That's awesome. Steve, what's yours?
So my trailer is the exact opposite of that. My trailer is Wonderstruck, which is based on the book Wonderstruck by Brian Selznick, who you may be familiar with the Hugo Cabret book that was made in the film Hugo.
Yeah.
So again,
totally.
So this is another case where it's a book that is big, old, fat hardcover, and half of the story is told through images, and the other half of the story is there's some actual text to read. And so this is the story of a boy named Ben who longs for the father he's never seen, and a girl named Rosie who dreams of a mysterious actress whose life she chronicles in a scrapbook. And Ben discovers a puzzling clue in his mother's room, and Rose reads an enticing headline in the newspaper, and both children set out alone on desperate quests to find what they're missing. And the stories are told, I think, like 50 years apart. We've got Ben in 1977 and Rose like sort of in the late 20s. And it is something that I have not read the book, and I had forgot that they were making this. It's directed by Todd Haynes, and Brian Selznick actually wrote the screenplay, which I think is pretty much just, hand Todd the book and say, okay, here's your storyboards. It's already set out for you. But it's one of these great kid stories that I think just is something that's a nice alternate programming in October against some of the horror films. This is coming out October 20th. And I'm just fascinated with stories like this, where it's kids going on this little adventure in the big city. Of course, to me, not very realistic, because you let a kid loose in the big city like New York and parents are freaking out. But I think for kids, this great adventure that you can go on to discover sort of who you are or about your family is just a really compelling story that I always find very interesting.
I am really intrigued by this. I read The Adventures of Hugo Cabret with my daughter, and we both just were under its spell, just absolutely mesmerized. She's currently actually reading Wonderstruck, and I just showed her the trailer, and she's like, I have to finish it before the movie comes out. Like, she's super excited about the fact that this is going to be made into a movie. I'm really excited about it. I just love the way that Selznick tells these stories. Todd Haynes is a director who's never really hit it out of the park for me. So that when I saw that he was directing it, that really kind of perplexed me. I'm like, really, that's an odd choice for this story, but I'm going to give him a chance because I think the story itself, there's so much potential for it. And I'm really excited about the fact that he cast Millicent Simmons to play young Rose. Millicent is a young deaf actor, and the character is deaf in the story, and her part of the story, I believe, is the one that's all done in illustration, because it's like that's how she sees her world. She doesn't, she can't hear anything, so it's just all the images. And I thought that was a really interesting and strong choice to actually cast a deaf actress to play the part. So I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too. I thought the trailer did exactly what it needed to do. I'm super intrigued by the layering of these stories on top of one another. They didn't give any of what you're talking about away. Like, I didn't get any of it, but the whole black and white versus color versus just the different sort of tableau that they were dealing with on screen or presenting on screen, I was really moved by and super curious. I'm absolutely going to see it, especially knowing that it's another sort of Hugo story. I'm a big fan, and Julianne Moore, and I wonder if she'll be smiling the whole time. You see that as twice, man.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that your when does it come out?
October 20th. So
October
so
20th.
right around the
All right.
corner. Yeah, like I said, your alternate to the horror that's out there. Take your kids to something nice and fun.
Okay, my trailer is also right around the corner. It is The Bachelors from director Kurt Volker. And actually, he wrote and directed this film. Stars J.K. Simmons and Kevin Dunn and Josh Wiggins as the son, Odeya Rush, and Julie Delpy. Oh, Julie Delpy. And it's not a sunrise sunset movie. It's a different movie for her. That's very exciting. This tells a story after the death of J.K. Simmons' character's wife. He moves with his teenage son across the country to a private school where he begins teaching, and his son goes to school. And they both find unique girlfriends, and they learn to embrace life and love again, according to IMDb. So it's very sensitive. I actually found myself quite moved by this trailer. I love J.K. Simmons. I love his beard. Oh, that is a beard. But everybody in here, I think, presented a wonderfully sort of heartfelt character. Even in the trailer, I felt like I was getting to know them to the point that I wanted to spend more time with them, and I pulled at just the right heartstrings. I don't know much about Kurt Volker. He wrote Rock Dog and Sweet November and Park. But in terms of, he also directed Park and a short, Decade of Love, which I have not seen. I have seen none of these things. My kids saw Rock Dog and they loved it, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys think?
One.
Do you know much about this?
I don't. But the trailer, I was right there with you. The trailer totally just, it gave me the feels. It was a nice little trailer, a nice sentiment with everything in it. I mean, I really just love these characters, and I feel like I got to know them, and I got to sense the pain that they were struggling with the loss of mom, and I just clicked with it. So I count me in.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as far as the feels. It is, the trailer seems to show that there's a balance to the story of sort of the awkwardness and of dealing with loss and tragedy and those awkward, parent moments. We've got the scene where it's like dad's giving the son the car. He's like, well, how are you going to get to work? He points to a bicycle. He's like, I have never seen you ride a bicycle. And it's just those, worlds sort of colliding of, parents having to deal with their kids differently. And I think it seems to be doing that in a very touching way that it's just a nice, it's going to pull on your heartstrings. It's rated K for Kleenex. There's going to be all kinds of tears, but what I see is it's hitting everything that I would expect this film to do. So I am looking forward to this one.
It's like the male version of Lady Bird.
Yes, exactly.
That's it. Well, it hit June 20th at the Los Angeles Film Festival, September 8th at the Deauville Film Festival, and it hit San Diego October 6th. So it's definitely on the festival circuit. Apparently, it gets wider release October 20th. I'm not entirely convinced I'm going to see it in a theater, given the list of release dates. Maybe if I go to Greece, November 30th, or the UK, January 26th. So I'm not holding my breath, but the story looks really cute. So put it on the list.
Absolutely.
All right. Shall we talk about our list today?
Let's do it.
Now, Andy, you were not around last week, so it was up to me and Steve to come up with the rules, and I think our rules were fairly broad.
Yeah, blood feuds.
Yeah.
Blood feuds, families torn asunder.
Yeah.
And I think we used the word gravitas.
Sure. Yes, I think so. Yes.
I don't quite remember.
It was the side of gravitas with the film. Yes. Yeah.
Was this an easy list for you guys?
I had a really easy time with it.
Because Andy's going to just break all the rules.
He wasn't even
Probably.
here, so what does he care?
Yeah.
Rules, schmules.
All right, Andy, maybe you should go first.
Well, I'm kicking it off with what I think is just an absolutely delightful film. And certainly it ties in nicely with our recent conversation about Kingsman, because it's another Matthew Vaughn film, and it is Stardust. And while I wouldn't say the film is centered on a blood feud, I would say a blood feud is definitely a key element of the story because it involves this kingdom where the king dies and he has 7 sons, and they all go after each other in quest of trying to get this, I can't remember what it is, like a ruby or something that he throws into the air. And so the 7 sons all start, fighting, and it soon leads to pretty much all of their deaths. And it's just a glorious, fun time of watching these sons fighting and going after each other. So that would be my first blood feud. Stardust, fantastic, watching these 7 brothers, fighting. That's
a great choice. And I don't actually think it breaks the rules. There is one rule that I want to throw out, which is Steve never goes first, and because of that, I'm cutting in line.
That's fine.
This week with my.
Yeah, he kind of killed your list last week, didn't he?
He did. He totally boned my list, and I've been carrying that around all week, and so I'm going to go before Steve.
Okay.
With Friendly Persuasion. Have you guys seen this movie?
No,
I have not.
Friendly Persuasion. It's a Civil War era comedy, mostly starring Gary Cooper and pre-psycho Anthony Perkins. They're part of a Quaker family, and a Confederate Confederate gang comes in and messes up a nearby town, and Perkins picks up a gun in vengeance to fight back against these bushwhackers that destroy their community. And it's the weirdest comedy you've ever seen, but it's largely ignored, and I think not rightly. It's a bizarre tonal mashup that you should probably see. It's very strange. And Gary Cooper and Anthony Perkins, it's really strange, but it ends up tearing the family apart in a kind of weirdly funny way because comedy.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
I like that the tagline on the poster says, "It will pleasure you in 100 ways."
You see what I mean? It is that actually describes my experience with this movie. So there you go. Friendly Persuasion.
Okay. And directed by William Wyler. So, okay, that's going to give me a reason to see this. I really enjoy his films. Yeah. So there are reasons. Okay.
And the writer was a blacklist, which I think is always interesting. Michael Wilson was on the blacklist, and there was no screenwriting credit when the film was originally released. So.
There is just a lot of reasons to see this movie, as you can clearly see, but mostly Anthony Perkins is a Quaker, and he picks up a gun.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So funny. Okay, Steve.
Okay. So it was a challenge for me. I really struggled with finding what I felt were going to be blood feuds, so we'll see. But my first one is at the time of its release, I don't have numbers to back up if it still holds this status, but it was the highest grossing Russian release ever, grossing more in Russia than Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. And what this is a story of 1,000-year-old truce between the forces of light and the forces of darkness. I'm talking about 2004's Night Watch.
Oh,
that has always been on my list to watch, but I've never actually seen it.
Totally.
So yeah, Timur Bekmambetov. Yes, and it is just this crazy, the forces of darkness and the forces of light. So I went with there's my blood feud. If they've been, at war, there's now a truce for 1,000 years, and of course humanity gets stuck in the middle, and it's just it's a visual spectacle. It's so much fun.
Was this the one? Does it end up in a little town at the end, like a village of some sort? Is there a village involved?
No.
I feel like I've seen this, but it ends in a village showdown.
No, this is all this. I've tried because I've watched this and its follow-up Day Watch, but I think Night Watch ends with a big fight in the city. Maybe Day Watch ends, maybe in a small village. But this is like you've got, cars driving on the sides of buildings and just all kinds of crazy visuals going on, weird dimensions. It's something that I think it's out there on Netflix now. So definitely worth
awesome.
Checking it out.
And Nikolai Coster-Waldau is in it.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, I don't remember it enough. If I did see it, I'll see it again. Nice pick. Andy?
Fantastic.
Number 2?
My number two, I was a little torn on which way to go with this, but I in the end, I ended up picking a film that, while I didn't love it, I found it really like a fascinating psychological study, along with kind of a little bit of a kick-ass thriller, and it is the really interesting film called A History of Violence, in which we have the always fantastic Viggo Mortensen, who is kind of like this small town diner owner, and these robbers come in and basically kind of he pretty much destroys them in no time. And then as you find out that, it's actually, there's a lot of stuff going on with Viggo Mortensen's character that we never knew, because he has a history of violence. And it turns out that his brother, played by William Hurt, actually, there's this kind of feud between the two of them. And while Viggo is trying to hide and just kind of get away from that life, William Hurt's character has no intention of letting him do so, and brings the blood into it to kind of end this story. It's just a really interesting story. I had a great time with it. David Cronenberg, it's not like the earlier sorts of films that he would do, but he certainly got into a lot more psychological sort of stuff in this period in his career. And I really was fascinated by the relationship between these two brothers, and really what it did to Viggo's character throughout the film. Well,
that's disappointing.
Took one off your list, did I?
We'll see. I will just leave it with this. Exceptional pick, Andy.
So, new rule, Pete will go first and do all his movies, then everybody else gets the scraps.
See, rules evolve. They're made to evolve. I think if we've learned anything. All right, my second pick is Warrior. I think 2011. Tom Hardy, and this is a nod to Tom Hardy, and we're talking about Tom Hardy this week in Star Trek Nemesis. Tom Hardy faces up against his brother Joel Edgerton in the finals of a mixed martial arts competition. This is one where Nick Nolte actually was nominated for Academy Award for his Best Supporting Actor role as the alcoholic father, and it's got some great fights. It's shot well. Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton look great, and it has one of the most disappointing endings of a fight film, and I found it really frustrating. And so it is both my number two pick of brother against brother blood feud. Unfortunately, not to completely spoil it if you haven't seen it, but not bloody enough at the end, as it turns out. I wanted more of the blood feuding at the end.
Oh man, I love that movie. I love that movie. Oh no,
it's great.
No,
it's great. I'm with you.
The whole setup to like, okay, you know where this is going to go, but then like they've done so much, I think, in terms of the backstory on the two brothers and their path to why they're in this competition, that for me on first watch, I was like, who do I pick? Who am I rooting for? Because I really see what each one of them, sort of what's at stake for each of them. And I thought that was a really smart, it wasn't clearly like, oh, here's the good brother, here's the bad brother, and it's good versus evil. It's like, yeah, you've got two different personality types, and Tom Hardy is a bit of a lunatic, but you can, I think they did a nice job of conveying what he's about and why he's doing this, which to me, I thought was really, really sharp way to approach this.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. It's really the climax of their final fight that I find super frustrating. I wanted somebody to win.
Yeah.
And in a way, I guess they both did.
Yeah.
Angels. Andy, have you
never seen it?
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. No. It's one that I've always been torn. Like, should I watch this? Like, I've heard some good things, but I've also heard some not good things. So I haven't bothered.
You should watch it. Yeah. You should watch it. In terms of fight films, it's a good one. All right, so Warrior, there's mine. Steve, number 3. What's your number 2 pick?
Two households, both alike in dignity. Romeo and Juliet, 1996.
That's a classic.
I mean, if you guys are like blood feud, well, these two brothers don't get along with each other. I'm like, no, feud, large-scale violence. That's what we're going for. And I think, this take on Romeo and Juliet of setting it contemporary times, just visually, frenetic Baz Luhrmann, bringing in the music, the color, the flair, the flash, just did a nice job of creating a movie for teens as a story for teens.
That's exactly what it's for. I hated it.
I remember loving the soundtrack, though,
Yeah.
as most of Baz Luhrmann's rock operas. I loved the soundtrack of this one. That was really great.
Yeah, he fluctuates for me.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that was one I watched. And I'm like, there's other versions of this that I appreciate more than this one. I really struggled with his thing. My favorite actually version of that is the version that we see in Hot Fuzz. The stage version that they put on is just brilliant.
Totally.
So funny.
All right, here we are. This is our final round. Blood feud films.
Sticking with the Shakespeare angle, I had a few options I was looking at with this because there certainly are some great blood feuds in his films. But I'm going with the one that is my favorite, and it's probably the gentlest adaptation of I guess you could call it a loose adaptation of one of Shakespeare's stories, and it is The Lion King, which I think is a fantastic pseudo take on Hamlet. I love the struggle that Simba has in feeling guilty about the death of his father, only to learn that it was actually this anger that his uncle has that led his uncle to kill his father, and then of course Simba comes back to reclaim the throne. Love the movie. It's one of my favorite animated Disney films. I have such a great time. And there is a great big battle at the end just for you, Steve. So there you go. Lots of feuding going on between lions and hyenas there.
Only after like 90 minutes of a Hakuna Matata.
That's about what you get in an animated film. You know?
All right.
All right. My number one pick was Andy's number two pick, A History of Violence. And so I agree, but I am going to give you a runner up because we clashed here. And that is the 1985 Akira Kurosawa film, Ran, in which our aging warlord has his three sons are pitted against one another, and they end up, there's exile and there's fighting and battles for kingdoms, and if there isn't a story about large scale families torn asunder that's better than this, I don't know what it is. I think this was one of his great ones.
It's another Shakespeare adaptation.
Yeah, right.
So there we go.
And it was actually my other Shakespeare backup in case somebody else picked one of mine. So I had that as one of my runner-ups.
See,
Great
now,
choice.
That's an interesting one, Andy. Like as I'm talking about it and thinking about it, wasn't that on the main list? Like it fits all of the categories, and somehow
Absolutely.
I put it as a runner-up too.
I don't know. That's an interesting thing that both of us had it as a runner-up and not as one of our primary ones. I was actually really torn. It's funny that you say that because I was really torn between that and A History of Violence.
Right.
So I ended up going with History of Violence. So it's really, it's only because I didn't want to end up with two Shakespeare movies on my list.
Yeah.
But
That's really funny. All right, Steve.
Okay.
Close us out.
I'm going to close this out with a film about armies fighting for decades over a piece of land. A religious war where men are willing to sacrifice their lives for a larger cause. It's about empire, beliefs, and defending those beliefs. And I know you guys haven't seen this, although I urge you to repeatedly. I'm talking about the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven.
That's so funny that you say that because I just told you last night I have it on the top of my Netflix queue.
Exactly. I was like, good. You'll be able to either back me up or go, Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. That movie was a disaster. To me, it's just epic storytelling. And when you've got, two, nations basically waging war over a piece of land and each are willing to die for it. So, generational religious blood feuds.
I need to see it. I know this is not the first time you have said that we need to see that movie, the director's cut. And then we did, what was it? We talked about, what's his name? Whose brother did the music.
Yeah, Harry Gregson Williams.
Right. Yeah. And the music is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
All right, fine. This is a good list. This is a good list right here. And totally, we're seeing links to all of these in the show notes. Check them out. And now we have to come up with our list for next week. Of course, this is going to tie into a discussion of Star Trek Nemesis, What are you thinking?
I think it absolutely has to be twin movies where the actor plays both identical twins.
I am totally going first every round. I know we are going to clash. Okay, so twin movies in which one actor plays both twins. What did you say? No.
Exactly. Yeah.
One
that was it.
actor plays both twins.
We might find that there are only a handful enough for us each to.
It turns out there are only 3, and we just have to have them in a different order. That's the game.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we might have to modify this over the week as we actually start looking and see. Like, there's only 4 of these out there.
Oh, I've got 2
see.
off the top of my head already. So
I bet we have the same too.
Probably.
Well, and we should say, we're probably still trying to stick with the rule. Well, at least I am of not picking anything we've discussed on the show before. So I know that already eliminates a big one for me.
Curses.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nice list, gents. This is I'm really regretting it's so cold. I wish I could have been outdoor casting with you today, but fall has come. I know you guys don't know what that looks like in Arizona.
No, it's actually beautiful weather in fall out here. So
yeah, that's what I mean. It's not pouring rain.
I should have been outdoor casting today.
But good matinee. And thank you, both of you, Steve and Andy, and thank you, everybody, all of our Patreon supporters. We really appreciate you supporting the show, and we hope once again that our discussion of great blood feud films is made for excellent dish casting and house cleaning casting for you. That is our goal for the Saturday matinee, and we'll catch you all next week with twin movies. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.